Damar Hamlin's a big favorite in this market to win Comeback Player of the Year. Ken, before I read the prices here, do you want to set us up here, set the table with Comeback Player of the Year criteria? Is that even like a thing? Obviously, this is like a very strange market that can lend to some like oddball winners and like just oddball sorts of like situations where players win.
Sure. I think there's like a lot of awards where people try to say it's like, this is a narrative award. And it's not. It's like driven by who has the best season, like who has the best stats, who has the best numbers, whatever. Like MVP, not really a narrative award. Are you the quarterback of the number one seed? Do you have great numbers? Then you win. That kind of stuff. There's definitely some narrative involved here. Like, how do you tell the difference between someone who has a great story, who's a good player and plays well, versus another player who has a great story? So like, whose story is greater? What a stupid conversation to have. And that's what Comeback Player of the Year is. And, Geno Smith wins last year. What was his comeback from being bad that much more significant than Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey's comeback from injury? How do you decide what are the value judgments of those comebacks? That's not possible to figure out, other than just listening to what the voters are saying or how the sport is being covered and then being like, oh, I guess they're going to go with that guy. And like, this market was a big win for me last year because it seemed like people were in on the Geno Smith storyline. I will say, if there is a common thread through Comeback Player of the Year historically, it is that the winner of the award has typically been either a quarterback who starts. So like, quarterbacks are a special class, obviously, of player and a special position. It's like a quarterback of some caliber. It doesn't have to be like a great all-pro quarterback. Quarterback of some caliber with a great story. Or someone at a different position with like Pro Bowl or All-Pro on their resume prior to winning the award. Like, this is an award that goes to great players. Like, that's actually the story of this. It's great stories and great players, and sometimes it's both. And so I think when we turn the attention to the Damar Hamlin conversation, it's not that he can't win or that this isn't like a done deal and people are going to vote for him or whatever. But like, everyone who argues for Damar Hamlin being a lock is going to argue Alex Smith, who like obviously like basically almost lost his leg, crazy. And there's a long documentary about his comeback, which is great. He's a quarterback. Like, it's just different. He was also the number one pick in the draft. Again, different. So just like, that's different. Eric Berry, who like came back from a health thing, all pro level player before it happened. Like, it's just not the same. Like, Teddy Bruschi, multiple Pro Bowls before winning. Like, the caliber player, this is like a celebration of a typically good or great player that comes back and wins the award, or it is a quarterback who has a great story. Geno, Chad Pennington, Alex Smith. Like, this is where you get into some guys where it's like, whoa, well, like they're kind of mediocre. It's just, all of this feels like something. And I'll just say, Damar Hamlin feels like something completely different than those things. And I think it's likely that we will look back on this and be like, man, that was crazy. Remember at last year's NFL honors when he got up with like all the first responders? They did it again at the ESPYs. They like recreated that moment. Like, we have honored and recognized this a lot, and it's great that we did so. And by the time we get to next February, it will have been a year since we did that. He's definitely winning. And people will be like, well, then like, what happens? Well, there are two things that could happen. One is this just kind of fades a little bit because he's on the roster and he plays and maybe makes a couple plays. Maybe he doesn't really matter. And like, we end up gravitating for this award toward kind of like how it's truly been awarded previously. And Damar Hamlin's story is like really notable, but it's just not, like I said, it's just not this. It's just not this. There's nothing in the rule book that says we have to honor this with Comeback Player of the Year specifically, which leads to the second point. Why can't we create a new award? The Damar Hamlin Award for Courage that we give out every single year. Like, you don't think Goodell's like licking his chops to come up with this thing and get it every single year? Like, it could just be a new thing. And then guess who doesn't win this one? Him. So just like, how do we know? And the price is insane. And then the backup part of it, or the gambling part of it rather, is, okay, like in week one, if Damar Hamlin is just like playing like a couple snaps and he's listed as the backup right now, and, he doesn't make like a really game-changing play or an interception, something like really seismic, he just kind of, again, like, what if the average outcomes happen? This price is going down. It's going to like minus 1,000 when he does nothing. That's what's going to happen to this market. Meanwhile, everybody else on the board's having 10 touchdowns. These are like the star players of the NFL. Just like, think about price here. He's going to do nothing and it's going to go up. That's what's going to, in what gambling universe does that ever happen to any market? Like Jackson Smith, this would be like Jackson Smith and Jigba's price is actually going to go down to win Rookie of the Year. Be like, well, he had wrist surgery. He's like not going to play. Nope, going to go down. Like, why? Why is that going to happen? So, like, even if you think he's going to win it, this is the worst bet I've ever seen for any point in the season. Because, like, he's not going to do anything to make the price change. Then we're going to get later in the year and everyone's going to pull out their ballots. And if he's on it, then the price will crash again. But that's not going to happen, like, before the year starts. We're already there. Like, everyone's already all in that this has to happen. Like, the only thing that can happen is the opposite. So just like, I don't understand why you would, and there's people on like, this is free money, bet anything you can on this. Like it's going to happen.
That's so terrible.
Now I know it's a bad bet. Now I know that we're right. Because like when people feel like that, there's a mania around a bet like this, it's almost certainly going to be overvalued or flawed in some way. And it's like, it creates this like free money sensation that's not actually true. So just like, look, it's like, okay, so tell me who to bet on. It's like, look, that's not the goal of this. And the goal of this is to point out this is a very, 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 very vulnerable favorite for a very unorthodox reason. And it makes it very interesting. But like the winner may not even be on the list. Just like be open-minded that when we get to February and it's impossible to put ourselves in that situation, you're going to read like ballots and polls and writing where it's like, this actually may not get mentioned a whole lot. Like it just might not, because it's 6 months from now. And like we have terribly short attention spans. And that's not the history of this award specifically. Like it doesn't have to be this just because like it seems like it right now. That's kind of like what I would say. I don't know if people understand, like Bryce Young can be awesome, can be very accurate, can make really good decisions, like can be running for his life a lot of the time, just throw the ball away. Like he's going to do a lot of smart stuff. He's awesome. But like, I mean, put a price on Bryce Young, like 25 or more touchdowns this year. I mean, it seems impossible almost given what Carolina's working with. And it's not that it can't happen. He's the second choice. And he's going against Bijan Robinson, like Jahmyr Gibbs, or some receivers that we're probably going to talk about who have huge upside to have like big seasons. I feel like Bryce Young's like big season is like a great game manager season, which would never win. I mean, ever. And even if they went like 9-8 and his numbers were bad, he'd lose to someone else. So it's like, all right, Richardson obviously presents the dual threat capability. That's why you kind of are a little intrigued by that. Even if the passing isn't there, like what if he runs for 800 yards or 900 yards this year? That's at least a little interesting. But I would just go back to look at the low prices you're paying. And we're trying to invent these like miracle cases for these guys to win. Like they're not like the average performance. It's like they really have to do something that's not expected. Like they're playing for brutal teams who aren't projected to score very much this year. So again, I mean, I guess we're just running back the same thing again. I just like out on the quarterbacks to start the season at least. So the only reason you want to make a bet on any of these rookies now is you think like the price is going to move hard in a direct, like people are going to say, just pulling a name out of it, people are going to say like, oh my God, like, did you see Quentin Johnston? Like, look, I mean, he got 3 touchdowns in week 1. He's the, number 2 receiver for whatever it is. Or like Mike Williams, got hurt in training camp, whatever. Like the only reason you want to bet these guys is because you think the price is going to move in your favor. And if you don't think that, then why would you bet him? Like if you think Bijan's going to win, my problem with Bijan betting him plus 250, I actually think I think you don't think he's a great candidate, and maybe you know more about it than I do. I mean, I think he's like an appealing candidate, at least. I think he has the potential to have a huge season still. But like this is going to, with all of the guys we've already talked about, this plus 250 is going to improve a lot in my favor if I bet this right now. You need everyone else to brick week 1 for this price to go to like even or something where you feel great that you bet Bijan plus 250. We all already think he's awesome. There's no pull back the curtain and it turns out he's really, like it says, we already know he's good. So nothing else can almost happen. He just would confirm that and it would justify his status as the favorite, and the price probably wouldn't change very much. So I like Bijan. Like I may end up betting him at some point this year. I just don't know why you would bet him before the season. To me, it's like, do a lot of work on the receivers that are all really long shot priced and like see if you like one more than the other and see which one you think. Maybe it's the week 1 matchup. Maybe the game has a really high total, or there's an injury that would cause a guy to play a little more, or whatever, something that, that you read. Maybe it's Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnston or like one of these really long shot receivers, or Jalen Hyatt, your guy for the Giants. Like if you see the path to a big year for them, there's one where it's like he catches a touchdown week 1. That's where we all go, oh, and now he's not 25-1 anymore, 20-1. Now he's 6-1. Now he's 5-1. And so, like, which guy in that group is going to move into the group with the guys that we already know are really good?